Well, the NFL has a lot of explaining to do after that bum call in the Cowboys game, which cost the Lions the game at the very end, gave the NFL the exact storyline matchup that they wanted, as the LA Rams will go into Detroit to face the Lions on Sunday Night Football. First Lions home playoff game in 30 years, and the first playoff game ever to be hosted at Ford Field. And I was out sick for a little while because I'm a little allergic to bad referee calls, and that one put me into straight anaphylactic shock. But now we're back to talk about it, and believe what you want. The NFL is not really rigged. There's too many moving parts. It's all really just a shameful coincidence. But the Lions did have that shot at the 1 seed, and it got blown with that blown call in the Cowboys game. Now, of course, the Cowboys did have 24 seconds or something like that, and I think they had their timeouts too, and all they had to get was a field goal. So it's not entirely out of the question that they could have gotten that field goal real quick, especially considering how at some points in the game the Cowboys were able to throw the ball with ease. Although the Lions defense did play pretty well throughout the whole game, there were just a couple moments where they gave up the big play and stuff like that. So it wasn't entirely 100% that the Lions would have won if that 2-point conversion would have counted, which most people will say that it should have, but that's neither here nor there. Of course, I don't know exactly what else they needed to happen to get that 1 seed, but I'm pretty sure that the Eagles lost the game that they had to, and then the Rams did end up beating the 49ers in the final week of the season, which is another condition that would have given the Lions the first seed had they won that game. But now here we are with that Vikings game. I thought that the Lions could use some of the momentum from the Cowboys game to move into the Vikings game, and they certainly did. In some ways, the Lions offense was still able to get the big play in that game. The defense didn't look quite as good as they did in the first matchup, but of course that's to be expected as when you face a team the second time, especially in such close proximity week-wise, they're gonna figure a little something out, and they were able to move the ball more effectively. The Vikings did against the Lions defense, especially in the running game. Ty Chandler had a decent amount of yards. I think he finished like 69 yards or something, as compared to like the 2 yards per carry he got in the first game or whatever. And Mullins looked a little better throughout the game, but then of course Nick Mullins, being who he is, he gave the Lions 2 fourth-quarter interceptions. As the guy, Nick Mullins, I guess he just tries to, fit it in there. You can't blame him for trying, but yeah, those costly interceptions at the end of the game are not going to win it for you. And so yeah, now here we are welcoming Matt Stafford and the Rams into Ford Field. And of course, you got to be a little nervous because we all know what Stafford is capable of. Stafford's still a really good quarterback. Now, of course, he's had some injury stuff going on. He's had lingering back issues, which have plagued him for a few years and stuff like that. So he's not going to be very mobile. But, of course, he still has that big arm, still has good field vision, and, he still has all the arm angles and everything. He was doing some of that Mahomes stuff before even Mahomes did it. And so, yeah, a few keys to the game here. Number one is to pressure Stafford, obviously. You can't let him have a clean pocket and dice you up, especially considering some of the weapons that he has. And he's able to get the ball to his playmakers better than, he's among the best in league history at doing that. Of course, we all know the record-breaking seasons that he's been a part of in terms of getting the ball to his receivers, whether it's Puka, whether it's Megatron back in the day, whether it was Cooper Kupp during that Super Bowl run. So defensive line is definitely going to have to get after Stafford. Looking at Hutchinson to get another 2 or 3 sacks, and really put the pressure on the quarterback there. The Rams tackles are not quite strong. I'm pretty sure that they're going to have potentially a backup tackle or 2 in the game, and so it's going to be really important for Hutchinson to get after it, especially if he's not facing the best tackles in front of him. And plus, on the other side, somebody else could add a sack as well, whether it's Pascal on the edge or somebody else. Even Levi Ozurike got in there in the Vikings game. And then plus Lee McNeil is back. He knows how to pressure the quarterback. He could definitely get a sack as well. And of course, the linebackers, when they come on blitz, they get sacks every now and then as well. So yeah, Jack Campbell or Alex Anzalone could definitely put some pressure on the quarterback there. And that kind of leads into the next thing, which is being able to force turnovers. Whether it's the interceptions that we know that Stafford is prone to throwing every now and then. If you could get one or two interceptions, that would make a big difference in the game. Or if you can force a fumble on Stafford, because as we already know, Stafford's not very mobile. He's had some injury issues and stuff like that, so he's probably not going to be 100%. I mean, mentally, he'll definitely be locked in, but physically, I don't know if he's going to be 100% there, especially if you're putting pressure on him, putting him on the ground. And, if he holds the ball for a little too long and he's not able to scramble effectively, you could also get a hand in there and force a fumble on him. So you definitely want at least one or two turnovers on Stafford. It can't be one of those games where he goes for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. You definitely need to force turnovers on the defense because that gives your offense a little bit of leeway as well. Not only in giving them extra possessions, but also, it gives your offense a little bit of margin of error. Not that we want our offense to make any mistakes out there, but, if Goff, throws an interception or so, or maybe has a fumble as he sometimes does, the defense, you'll want them to spot one every now and then. And also on the defensive side for the Lions, beware of play action. Now, we all know from Stafford's time with the Lions that Stafford's one of the best play action quarterbacks in the league. He has been his entire career. Even when they didn't have much of a run game in Detroit back when he was there, he was still one of the best quarterbacks at play action statistically. So, yeah, in this Lions defense, very keyed in on the run. As we all know, they're like a top 5 run defense. They've been one of the best run defenses all year. But play action definitely makes the linebackers, it sucks them in perhaps more than other teams because of how keyed in the Lions are on the run. So you definitely need to be wary of the play action. They're definitely going to, give you some. McVay being a very smart coach, he'll know exactly what to do with the game plan to try and dissect the Lions defense. And plus, he's a guy who likes to call play action anyway. So all that combined means that you want to watch out for the play action because, you don't want to get sucked in and then have them beat you over the top, especially considering how the Lions secondary hasn't been the best over the course of the season. And then, but going back to the offensive side of the ball for the Lions, it's the offensive play calling situationally. The offensive play calling in certain scenarios has been a little too predictable, especially on third and short in the Cowboys game when we were running the ball in a really obvious, situation there. So the defense was really looking for it, and they were able to snuff it out really quickly. So you kind of got to, have a mindset of your own tendencies there and kind of reverse them. Definitely would like to see more play action in those kind of situations. And, take your play action shots too. Of course, this team's probably going to go in with the underdog mentality anyway, just considering, how Detroit is. As Amon-Ra St. Brown said in his own podcast, the Lions are always underdogs no matter what. So, open up with, a couple shots where normally you would just pound the rock up the middle with Montgomery. Throw a deep one to Jameson Williams and make them fear that. That'll just open up the rest of the offense in the run game. You can't just rely specifically on the run game the whole time. You have to sprinkle in other things to make your offense more dynamic, make them expect one thing or fear one thing. Because, if they're fearing the deep pass, if you're able to, let's say, get a deep shot to JMO in the first quarter, the rest of the entire game, the Rams defense is going to be thinking about that deep shot there. So, yeah, definitely, mix in some different things, make the offense more dynamic. Don't rely on the run game. I know that we have a very strong run game and 2 very good running backs, but you can't just rely on it entirely. And then plus, there were some other instances in the play calling of the Cowboys game where there's that one screen pass where Goff threw an interception. You got to have some other options or something, like tell him to throw the ball away if it's not there or something. And I understand that he couldn't have necessarily seen Poyer coming down at the last second like that, but yeah, just being a little more mindful about things. I mean, obviously, Ben Johnson and the whole offensive staff is really good. They're going to be focusing on a lot of different things because, this game is going to mean a lot to the Lions and their staff since Brad Holmes came from the Rams, Jared Goff came from the Rams, and just a bunch of little connections like that. And, of course, Stafford coming back to Detroit. Yeah, just really don't want to see Stafford come in and tear stuff up. and really put us out to pasture. Um, I don't know exactly how keyed in he'll be since he's come back to Ford Field. Maybe it'll make him feel a certain way and get him locked in a certain way. But so yeah, oh yeah, and then also on the defensive side, the last thing, it's that secondary again. Yeah, we got to mention the secondary. Now, of course, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is coming back. He had that game-ending interception in the Vikings game, so he's a big playmaker. He's one of the best players on the defense. But the issue, and I don't really want to say issue, but he's had a few problems these past weeks with guys like Justin Jefferson and C.D. Lamb, and that's Cam Sutton. Now, of course, we understand, Justin Jefferson is going to go off and do what he does just, day in and day out because that's just how good he is. But, you definitely want to see your number one corner at least do something to stop him a little bit. And in the second Vikings game, I think he was the one who got burned by Addison on that deep shot where, I mean, there were some plays like that where he just doesn't seem like ready for the play to start, whether it's like getting some sort of call in or whatever, or the offense snapping the ball quicker than he thought. I don't know, but there were just some times where his head just really wasn't in the game, and receivers just were able to run by him as a result. So Cam Newton, I mean, Cam Newton, I hope he doesn't play like Cam Newton in the playoffs. Cam Sutton needs to really get locked in and do what he can against whichever receiver he's matched up on, whether it's Cup or whether it's Puka. Now, Brian Branch, the slot defender for Lions, who's been really good, one of the best rookies in the class, he'll probably be on Puka a decent amount. And Puka's got to be a little careful about going over the middle because he could get popped a few times by this Lions defense, whether it's Branch, who we know is able to lay down some big hits, or even Melifonwu. He's been popping some guys over the middle. And Kirby Joseph, who ended Hawkinson's season, and then also got in a shot on Justin Jefferson in that first Vikings game. There's some pretty fearsome hitters on the Lions defense. That's really what's been giving the Lions defense their intensity and helping them to play a little better down the stretch here. I mean, for the Lions defense, they're a pretty well maligned group because we know that they've had their issues over the course of the season. But I mean, the past two games, you gave up 20 points in each of those. 3 of the last 4 you've given up 20 or fewer. Gave up 17 to the Broncos, 24 to the Vikings in that first game. But with the Vikings throw the ball a million times far down the field, what are you gonna do there? But yeah, so the Lions defense has been playing better down the stretch here. I don't know if they are playing quite as well as they were a little earlier in the year, like week 3 on, where they were beating those NFC South teams 20-6 and all that stuff. But yeah, they're still a unit that can play. They can definitely force turnovers, as we've seen at certain points over the year. And then also lately they've been able to get after the quarterback a little more by playing a little more aggressively. Now, of course, that comes with its cons because it leaves that at times weak secondary out to dry if you can't get to the quarterback very quickly. But yeah, that aggressiveness is going to be key because they got to get after Stafford. They got to put Stafford on the ground at least a few times, at least get some hits on him. You can't just let him stand in the pocket and just tear you apart the whole game. Now, yeah, so of course we're a little worried about this one because it's got Stafford coming back, and the Rams are still a pretty good team, but overall I think that the Lions are the better team. I think that they will be able to win this one. It might be a bit of a nail biter, but yeah, I think that some of the mistakes from earlier in the season, the coaching staff will learn from. I think that in certain situations, I hope so anyway, they'll take the points, especially early. Because, I mean, I understand what you're doing by going for it in the red zone. It's a high leverage situation. And if you do score the touchdown, it puts you ahead and everything. It gives you a really good grip on the game. But, when the points are there, you just got to take them sometimes, whether it's going to, that's the difference between it being 7-0 or 7-6. And, they're still not necessarily being used to being in this situation where they're the big dog and other people are coming after them. So, maybe play with a little bit more control, going into the game thinking that you're going to win it, instead of thinking that you have to pull out a bunch of different stops to win. You just got to play with a level head come in with a good game plan, know that you belong there, and everybody's going to be on their side too. It's going to be really loud on the field. It's going to be really difficult for Stafford and the opposing offense to really do much of anything. So yeah, I mean, there's always the fear there that it won't go as you think it might. But there's still reasons to be confident in this game, and I think that the Lions will be able to win this one. I hope I'm not proven wrong, and we will see what happens this weekend. But yeah, overall, just be really excited for it. No matter what, it's still very exciting time, and yeah, putting it all on the line, really high leverage stuff. Yeah, so let's just enjoy it while we can.